First Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
We're going to do another question. What is your criteria for the best level ever? Asks Oroji Star. That's his name.
That's a really good question.
Yeah,
what are my criteria? Well,
Jeez.
that's deep. Let's see. Well, a lot of it does depend on the game. I think that a level can be best in a game, like you sort of have the best level in a game, or the best level that a game could be. I think there's sort of this saying in game development that there aren't a lot of bad ideas, but there are a lot of ideas that are bad for this project. And so I think that the best level in a given game is the one that works the best with its with what the game does. Like back when I first started working on Bioshock, and I swear I'll get to your answer in a bit. When I started working on Bioshock, I had a bunch of ideas for like, oh, it'd be great to do this and great to do that. And the project leads were really good about reining me in and being like, no, that's not what the game's about. Like that goes completely off the rails. It tries to introduce a mechanic for a single level and then forget about it, and all those are bad things. But my criteria for like what makes like the best level, it's the one I remember the most. It's the thing that is like the most compelling to me at the end of the day, the thing that I can look back on and be like, man, that was good. And things that inspire me to make more levels or make better levels. When I play something in a level and I go, oh, I gotta steal that later, or borrow that. Then I think that is what makes the best level. I definitely couldn't like pick out a good, like what I think is the best level of all games of all time. But I think like the first level that jumps into your head is usually the best one.
Yeah. What do you think of comparing kind of the science of the level design of 2D platformers like Mario Brothers or Mega Man 2? When I think level design, I immediately just think about how they introduced a challenge to you in just the right pacing, and how the challenges were just different enough from each other to make you have to think, but not so different that you had to like start all over in terms of your learning process.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of level design, that 2D flat level design, applies to the kind of stuff you do as well? And if so, in what way?
I think it does. Not directly, but there's this old philosophy that I forget who said it. I should have done some research, but it's this old philosophy called good design makes use of all. And so the idea is that all experiences can contribute into some kind of design. And I don't think it was originally about game design, but I think it applies. The pacing and things like that, those are all definitely important elements. You just sort of have to kind of wrap your brain around things in a different way. Like use a really nerdy example here. Like if you're learning code, right? If it's your first time learning a language, you're going to be really confused. There's going to be a lot to kind of wrap your mind around. But then you start understanding these sort of core concepts of variables and loops and declarations and that kind of stuff. And then once you go to learn a second programming language, you start looking for those touchstones. Like, oh, how do you declare a variable? How do you initiate a loop? How do I define my functions and all that? So bring that back down to design. Like, when you start realizing what makes good user experiences abstractly, then you can sort of lay those down as a template over the game that you are making or the game that you want to make, and figure out what about that is going to be compelling. Like you listed pacing as a good example. Like that's a very good example, but in different games that can mean very different things. In a more skill-based thing like as you say, Mega Man or something like Dark Souls. There's a lot about trying to give you the right roll-on of skills and abilities and monsters, and not leave you completely overwhelmed. But then in a game more like a more scripted game, a tightly scripted game like, say, Uncharted, it's less about the actual enemy roll-on and the powers and weapons, and more about the experiential roll-on. Like, and in that way, it's more like movies where, what do I want the player to experience now, and how do I best foster that experience?
Whoa, dude! Just like,
sorry,
just like you did it. That's the brain stuff that people want. It's hard to get in that zone, especially with a total stranger. Just be like, just gonna let you know all the stuff I know. My brain's just gonna
don't steal my secrets. I need a job.
That was awesome. Thank you. I should do. Cheese Pirate asks, would you? Oh, Sorry, that's a poorly written sentence. I believe it's. I think they're asking, what do you think about a new take on the Bioshock series? Of course, Ken Levine's doing Bioshock Infinite, but what do you think of Bioshock Infinite, and what do you think of the Bioshock series in general? Would you do a new take on it if you had the power to do so, or what do you think of the direction it's in, and what direction would you want it to go in?
Well, let's see. I mean, first off, I love it. Like, obviously, I played the hell out of the first one. I sadly didn't really play the second one because when you work on a game for 2 years,
Yeah,
you kind of I don't want to say you don't want to look at it anymore, but you kind of you've seen it go through a lot of its paces, and you get into this weird sort of like unstuck in time kind of thing where you remember things that aren't in the game because you saw a version that existed at one point but then got taken out and other stuff that got put in and you didn't realize it was there.
sure.
So I definitely love the series. I think yeah, I'm excited about Infinite. I can't wait to see what they do with it. Yeah, I've had friends who have worked on it in various capacities. So I'm eager to see. It's all people that I know to be really smart. So I'm eager to see what they're going to come up with. What I would do with the series, man, I don't know. We like Ken told such a complete story at the beginning of the first one that I think we had a real challenge with the second one, coming up with what should happen in that world and still satisfying the fans who I think people really wanted to go back to Rapture, but that's one of those things where it's like, is that story told or is there more life in it? And I think as evidence, well, I would like to say as evidenced by the sequel and the subsequent Minerva's Den DLC, I think there definitely are stories to tell. And I think if I had been given a chance, honestly, the idea I had at one point, and I wish we'd been able to release molecules because I would have loved to have seen what people could do with it. But I actually wanted to do a bit of a cliche thing, but I wanted to have you experience sort of life through a Big Daddy's eyes, but the eyes of a Big Daddy who had been driven slowly insane by being separated from the sister he was paired to. And so it would be this weird, like, you're chasing the little sister down these corridors and sort of using the idea of what goes on in somebody's head and the different experiences that can happen in there. And that was sort of alluded to in the little sister level, where you see the world all pristine and all that, and then as soon as she interacts with it, then it flashes to this the grungy, terrible world it is. But
Sure. Oh yeah, that would have
it
been.
really spoke to me.
Wow, what a nice idea. I hope they run with that. Because that's something video games can do. They can put you in the place of someone who you might not even like or want to be, but learn how they experience the world and relate with them, whether you ever wanted to or not. They should make a Bad Lieutenant game.